What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Sehgal show, where we interview some unstoppable entrepreneurs who are dominating figures in their businesses. Sahil here, back again with an awesome, insane guest. Our today's guest is someone who's considered the number one authority on engineering profitable customer acquisition campaigns. He's an expert that other expert goes to when they need help with their own businesses. He has helped his students engineer more six and seven figure funnels than any other expert online today. His list of coaching and consulting clients includes A-list entrepreneurs. So many entrepreneurs fly into his place to learn his renowned E5 method. Without any further ado, let's welcome Todd Brown to our show today. What's up, everyone? This is Sahil here, and welcome to the Sehgal show, where I'm gonna be interviewing some crazy entrepreneurs out there who started from scratch with no experience, resources, and connections, and then later on became unstoppable and dominating figures in their respective businesses. We're gonna dive deep into the mindset of these super successful entrepreneurs to find out how they did it and how you can model it too. It's time to pick their brains and uncover all the strategies and tactics which these entrepreneurs use to scale their businesses from nowhere to multiple 6, 7, and 8 figures. Welcome to the Sehgal show. Welcome, Todd.
How are you, buddy? Excited to be here.
All good. It's a pleasure and honor to have you today.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, man, with you.
Awesome. Great. All right, Todd. So I'm actually more curious instead of your entrepreneur story. I'm curious more to know about your pre-entrepreneur story. Who was Todd before jumping into this entrepreneur world, and then where did this entrepreneur bug came from?
Wow, great question, man. So I was born and raised in New Jersey, the Jersey Shore. So for those of you familiar with that's where I grew up. I mean, look, I was a terrible student my whole life, more because I just goofed off. So I never did well, never made the honor roll, anything like that. Um, I was also really small. So I was very short, still short, but I was always very short, very skinny. So I really wasn't good in athletics or anything like that. And so I didn't really do a whole lot or accomplish a whole lot until my late teens. And that's when I started to get into bodybuilding, of all things. I was such a small kid and I just wanted to, I always loved the Incredible Hulk and whatnot. And so started weightlifting and then just really took to it and started to add muscle and get better and feel more confident. And then I ended up competing in the bodybuilding world. And finally, I'm going to skip around a little bit. Finally, I graduated high school, which I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do. And then I did graduate from high school. I couldn't get into any college. So again, terrible student, no college would accept me. So I went to community school. Took me 3 years to get a 2-year degree. Finally, I was able to transfer to a state school in New Jersey. Took me another 3 years to complete that 4-year degree. So a total of 6 years to get a 4-year degree. I got the degree in, of all things, clinical nutrition. I couldn't get a job when I graduated, so I ended up going to work for a health club. And while I was at the health club, it was there that I got bit by what I would call the personal development bug. And so I was exposed to like my first personal development book, a book by Dennis Waitley. I believe it was called The Psychology of Winning. And I had to read it as part of my employment for the health club. And I just fell in love with what was being shared in the book about self-confidence and self-belief and eliminating doubt and all these things. And so I started to grow as a young adult. And then I was promoted within this health club to running a particular department. While I was running that department, not really knowing what the heck I was doing at all, I was responsible for generating revenue through this one department in multiple health clubs. I got a direct mail piece. So I got an oversized postcard, a big yellow postcard. I'll never forget this. I got this postcard and it was a whole bunch of copy, which I had never seen before, long form direct response copy. And it was offering a home study system for fitness professionals on how to market and grow their service. And so I asked my boss at the time if I could expense it. It was a few $100s. He said yes. I bought that home study course, and that was my introduction into the world of direct response marketing. I absolutely fell in love with direct response. I started using the principles that I was learning, adapting them to the health club environment. My department absolutely soared over the next handful of years. And and then I got bit by the entrepreneurial bug in that I said to myself, I wonder if I could do something on the side. I wonder if I could take what it is that I've learned and see maybe help massage therapists grow their practices. And that's what I did. And not knowing anything about the internet or copy or online. And this is many, many moons ago, before video was online, any of that. And the rest is history. That was my introduction. That was my first business, my first kind of foray into using direct response to generate income. And the rest is history, man.
Wow, that's amazing. And you have seen it all. Like, I don't know. Do you miss that day when you those days now? Like these days, people don't send these big binders, audio cassettes, and CDs are they has been replaced by social media and all. Do
Yeah.
you miss those days? And what is the
A
difference
little bit.
between?
Yeah, for sure. A little bit. Yeah. I mean, I'm still, you could see the bookshelf in back of me. I'm an analog guy. I mean, you could see the gray. I'm a little, I'm older now. And so, 50, just turned 50. And so, yeah, I do. I miss those days when, you could put together a home study thing that you ship
Yeah.
physically and you could touch it and feel it and see it. I mean, to give you reference, and there are going to be some people listening to this that don't even understand what it is that I'm about to say. So the very first home study kit that I sold had audio cassette tapes, which many people on here are like, what's an audio cassette tape? My kids don't even know what an audio cassette tape looks like. It had a hard diskette that you used to put into the computer with swipes and
Yeah.
stuff on there. Yeah, man, I do miss those days a little bit.
Yeah, it's cool. I I can imagine. I wanted to get that vibe whenever I buy a book or something. I was like, this is what I need. This is more better than watching a video. You can
Yeah.
hold it, you can feel it. And what difference do you see between that traditional marketing and now modern marketing?
I mean, not a whole lot. I mean, certainly, things have evolved in terms of tech and what it is that we can do today from a direct response approach. I mean, the internet has really just changed the game in that we can do so much more savvy marketing. We can, track who clicks a link. We can today track who clicks a link or who goes to a link from a direct mail piece. We can segment our lists with a couple clicks of the button. We can do retargeting. We can do one-click upsells. We can do all kinds of crazy things. And so all of those things have certainly made it easier. Like I'll tell you, it's never been easier than it is right now today to launch and grow a direct response driven business. Never been easier to publish pages for a marketing campaign. It's never been easier or even cheaper to start a business today. It's never been easier or quicker to target prospects and get a message out in front of them. And so, it's certainly changed the game in what we're able to do and how we're able to do it today, not to mention the speed. So years ago, when I first started my business, I was running small space ads in trade publications. So I had to wait for those to get mailed out for them to see it. And then we were using, toll-free recorded messages. So people had to call in, leave their address. We'd ship stuff out. Today, I mean, you could launch a new campaign and in a matter of hours begin generating sales with Facebook ads and YouTube ads. And so, yeah, the core of what it is that we're doing, creating wildly compelling no-brainer offers and presenting them to a target audience, those core elements haven't changed. Those core principles are still the same, but the tactics that we use to do that have certainly evolved.
Yeah, that's totally 100% agree on that. And now it's so much easy to get into this online space and, as you said, build up a campaign and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But do you still use any of the principles or strategies or any ninja tricks that you have learned in traditional marketing and now you are taking advantage in the modern day world marketing?
Well, I would say that, to be clear, so right, the type of marketing that I do, that maybe I suppose the majority of when we think of online marketers in the online marketing world, the majority are using what we call direct response. Whereas typical brand institutional advertising, what companies like Home Depot, Pepsi, doctors do, is that is wildly different from what we do. And so while they're trying to generate top of mind awareness and they're relying on repeated exposure in the hope that somebody's going to decide to make a purchase or go to their business, we're using direct response. We're putting out a message and we're ultimately getting a yes or no immediately. And so the foundations, the principles of direct response haven't changed since prior to, since I've been doing this for a little bit over 20 years now. They haven't changed since prior, right? So if you look at my bookshelf, so right, this is you can't see the library. So there's one shelf in this library that is my most precious possession, and it is the shelf with all of the old school legendary books of direct response. Breakthrough Advertising by Gene Schwartz, How to Write a Good Advertisement by Victor Schwab, Tested Advertising Method by John Caples, the Robert Collier Letter book. Those are all books that were written, decades and decades ago, well before the internet was even a thing. And the reality is that the overwhelming majority, not all, but the overwhelming majority of principles and strategies put forth still apply today. The only difference is, and this it goes into really the difference between studying strategy and principles and studying and learning tactics. There are a lot of people that will study and learn the tactics of, let's say, Facebook advertising. Well, the reality is that 6 months from now, 8 months from now, a year from now, those tactics are going to have changed, right? The platform is going to change. The algorithm evolves. And so they're going to have to continue to study the same thing in order to just stay up on the changes. But the principles of direct response and marketing and selling through a marketing campaign, those have remained the same since the beginning of time, because those are more about psychology, communication, and math. The foundation of direct response marketing is psychology, communication, and math. Psychology of who? Psychology of our prospect. What is the problem that they have, right? What is the ideal solution? What have they already heard from other people, right? What are the aspects of a solution that they don't want, right? What are their desires, right? What are the benefits that they're looking for? Communication is, what do we say to position our product or service as an attractive solution to the market, knowing their psychology? And how do we wrap that into an irresistible, no-brainer, superior offer? And then math, arithmetic. It's all about, right? Like what is a prospect worth? What's a visitor or somebody that sees our message worth? What's a lead worth, right? What are we paying to acquire a buyer? What's the value of the buyer when we acquire them? And so those things, the foundational principles have not changed at all. What has changed is how we execute those principles, those strategies tactically. That's the only difference. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Definitely.
Right. So like, let me give an example real quick. So there is this, look, so, there are certain strategies within persuasion, for example, things that Robert Cialdini talks about in his book, Influence. So things like reciprocity, commitment and consistency, authority, scarcity, urgency. Right. Well, the reality is that those things continue to be effective today at moving people. The only difference is, how do we execute on that? How do we convey urgency, scarcity, right? So the idea of, let's say, a pattern interrupt at the start of a VSL, we use a pattern interrupt, which is something unexpected, unanticipated, right, to get attention and create engagement. Well, there are times that there have been times where certain types of pattern interrupts worked because they were new, they were different. Like the doodle videos, for those people that have been around a long time, right? At one point when those doodle videos first came out, it was a wild pattern interrupt. And so they worked, like crazy to grab attention and create engagement. But then over time, when they no longer served as a pattern interrupt, they became a pattern. as more and more people were doing it.
Mhm.
So they weren't and aren't as effective as they once were. That doesn't mean that the strategy, the principle of a pattern interrupt is no longer viable. That just means that we need to tactically shift how we execute on that strategy of the pattern interrupt. Make sense?
Yes, that's so deep. I completely makes sense. Absolutely. And nowadays it's a lot like copy pasting method is a lot. They see somebody sees an ad running on Facebook or somebody tries to do that, anybody trying to copy someone, but they don't understand the strategy behind it. They are just trying to copy a tactic. Yeah, you
Well
touched it.
said. Yeah, well
Yeah.
said. I mean, look, first of all, in what you just said, there's so much wisdom because first and foremost, even based on what it is that we just talked about, the idea that direct response is driven by psychology, communication, and math, people will see something being done, let's say by another marketer, advertiser, entrepreneur, and then they just copy it without knowing certainly the underlying strategy, but also then they immediately think that that's going to apply to their marketplace, but their marketplace might have a wildly different psychological state, emotional state, desires, fears, concerns, beliefs. And so, right, sheerly from a psychological perspective, they could be wildly off the mark. The other thing is that without fully understanding the strategy behind a tactic, you can implement a tactic and actually get the reverse of the strategy. Let me give you an example. So there was a point in time when a lot of folks were launching new products, and they were using my buddy Jeff Walker's product launch formula. Great program, phenomenal approach. Many people are likely familiar with it. Jeff is a great guy, great marketer. What they would see in these launches is they would see that underneath the launch videos, somebody had a great marketer had the Facebook comment widget. And so they would have a bunch of Facebook comments underneath. Of course, we know that they were using the Facebook comment widget as a way to build and generate social proof, to show that there were a lot of people paying attention to this, then to be able to ultimately leverage scarcity when there's 5,000 people that have posted comments. There's only 100 copies of this thing, like blah, blah, blah. And so somebody else, a novice marketer, novice entrepreneur would see that, say, oh, they have a Facebook comment widget underneath their videos. Let me put a Facebook comment widget underneath my video. And they would wind up with 2 comments or 3 comments, not realizing that tactically they might be doing the same thing, but they now have reverse social proof, because now what people are seeing is there's no one here, there's no one paying attention. And so this is probably not good enough for me to pay attention. And so see, when you don't understand the strategy behind the tactic, you can go very wrong.
Yeah. I love that analogy that you used. It's so true in this today's world. To try to copy someone else page, copy the post or any ad, and then they fail miserably. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
in
Well
that,
said.
yeah, I have a follow-up question on that. Like, how do you then differentiate? What framework do you prefer to use to differentiate your products and services?
Well, so that's a great question. It's a big and deep question. So first and foremost, the first thing that I would share is that you don't try to differentiate your solution and what you're offering with marketing tactics. In other words, a marketing tactic doesn't differentiate your solution from everybody else's solution who you're competing with. And so you don't try to differentiate through tactics. You differentiate ultimately, and like I said, this is a deep question. You differentiate by how you position and present your solution to the market. So first and foremost, let me take a step back and say this, that that differentiation is critical in marketing. Marketing is really the art of meaningful differentiation, right? Marketing at its core is really the art of meaningful differentiation. What does that mean? It means that you are showing that there is a difference between your solution and all of the other solutions that your prospect can choose. But that difference has to be meaningful to your prospects. So how do we meaningfully differentiate, right? There are only 2 ways today in marketing to meaningfully differentiate your product, your solution from others. Number 1 is you have what's called a unique selling proposition, a USP. Right now, a USP, there's a lot of definitions out there. The easiest way to understand a USP is when your product or service offers a unique benefit that the prospect cares about and wants that none of your competitors' products or services offer, you have a USP. So if your product is able to deliver a unique benefit that nobody else is delivering, you have what's called a USP. The reality is that today USPs are rare. They're typically only found with disruptive technologies. Like, for example, when Uber first hit the scene and Uber was competing with yellow cabs, there was a lot of unique selling propositions, like the fact that you could hail a ride with your phone. You didn't need cash. You didn't need to tip anybody. You could see when the driver arrived, right? Those were all meaningful points of difference between Uber and yellow cabs, right? But what happened to Uber in terms of their USPs? Those USPs evaporated. Why? Because other rideshare companies like Lyft came along and knocked off those things, right? And so now those things, hailing a ride from your with your phone, not having to pay cash, that's no longer a USP or USPs for Uber. So the reality is that today, even though this is, in those legendary books, USP is talked about a lot. Today, USPs are rare. So that brings us to the second of the only two ways to meaningfully differentiate. And that's with what I call a unique mechanism. Now, the unique mechanism, it might sound similar in name to a unique selling proposition, but they're wildly different. A unique mechanism has nothing to do with you promising a unique benefit that nobody else does. A unique mechanism is when you can demonstrate how your product or service works differently to produce the result that your prospect cares about. So in other words, right, when I can say to you, I can say, look, I have a new and different way for you to lose 10 pounds in the next 2 weeks. It's wildly different than anything else you've seen or heard in how it strips off body fat from your waist or whatever. This unique method is called XYZ, right? And let me tell you how it works and how it's able to produce such better results than any of the other methods out there. And so that's how you meaningfully differentiate. When you can show that your product or service is able to produce the result, the outcome, the promise, the transformation, the change, the benefit that your prospect wants, but you're able to show them, not with tactics and whiz bang bells and whistles, but when you're able to show them, when you're able to explain to them, when you're able to give them the reasons why your product, your service works differently to produce the result, and because it works differently, it's able to produce that result better than the other options. That's when you have a winning marketing campaign or a winning argument. Fact of the matter is, and this is important, this is a little rant for me here, so just roll with me for a second. Fact of the matter is, what most people attempt to do, most marketers, most entrepreneurs, especially online, because it is so easy to market and sell things, is they try to sell a commodity. They in other words, there's no differentiation. They're not giving a reason why people should see their product or service as different and better. And if people don't see that your product is different and better, why would they want to buy from you, right? Unless you're willing to give an incredible deal, an incredible offer that is head and shoulders far above anybody else, right? Why should they buy from you? And so the reality is that, again, what you've got to remind yourself that, especially today, more so than ever before, marketing is the art of meaningful differentiation. Your job is to show that your product or service is not only different, but it is superior to every other option in the way that it delivers the result. I don't mean, and this is important, I don't mean that it's different in terms of the packaging, in terms of the logo, in terms of the color, in terms of if you're selling information, in terms of the volume of information. I'm not saying that you differentiate by saying they give you audios, we give you videos. That's not meaningful differentiation. You want to show them that you've got a different way to give them the result they want, and you want to explain how and why your different way is superior to every other way, every other method, every other system for giving them the result. When you do that, you have a very easy sale. Make sense?
Yes. Beautifully explained. It totally makes sense. Yeah, people are dropping comment, wow, fire, all that stuff. Oh, that's amazing. Love it. And in that way, like when you create that, I know that you talk about you are pro in that long form copies and all that copywriting, all that. Uh, in that, when you are designing some kind of campaign, so how do you create compelling message, or in other words, I can say copy that converts, that cause people to move and take action?
Yeah. So, look, that's another huge question, right? Because, I've done multi-day trainings on that question alone. I'll tell you this, that it starts first and foremost with a deep understanding of your audience, right? It starts from you really understanding what makes your audience tick. What problem do they have? What issues is it causing them? What pain points is it causing them? How is it making them feel, right? What is the outcome that they want? What do they consider to be the ideal solution? What are parts of other solutions that they don't want, don't like, don't enjoy, don't value? What is important to them as it relates to that problem and getting the results? All of those things, right? Which is part of what we call the examination stage. Before you write a single word of copy, before you develop a big marketing idea, before you create a product, come up with an offer, create a marketing argument, any of that stuff, you have to start by examining your prospect to understand their psychology. So everything emanates from the market. You have to learn to see the world through their eyes, not your eyes. And ultimately, what people care about today is what is this going to do for me, and how is this different in the way that it's going to do it for me, and prove to me that this thing is going to work and will work for me, right? Like the days of simply having a sales pitch, like the days of a mere sales pitch working for the masses in a marketplace are long gone. There's always a segment of the market that if you have a campaign that's like, here's my product, here's what you get with it, here's what it'll do for you, and here's the offer. There's always a segment, a small segment, but a segment of the market that will respond to that. But the masses, the people that are at what we call lower stages of awareness, the people maybe that are only aware that they've got a problem and they don't know the different solutions out there, or the people that are aware that they have a problem and they're now kind of looking at two different solutions. Do I want a software? Or do I want to hire a consultant? All of those things. That type of pure pitch campaign never works. And so today you have to understand what makes your market, what makes your audience tick. And what they want to know from you is, what is this going to do for me? Right? How is it going to do it for me? What makes your solution different and better than all of the others out there? And then what's the deal? What's the offer? How are you going to, right? How are you going to show me that you're going to eliminate the most amount of risk for me? Financial risk, right? Effort risks, time risk, all of those things. And so rather than answering that question with specific words and phrases, it really has to begin with an understanding of who you are talking to. If you don't understand what makes them tick, especially from a psychology perspective, what makes them tick, what they've heard before from other marketers, other offers, what they've tried before, what they've struggled with, what they believe about other offers, what they want in an offer, what they care about most. If you don't understand that, you're just shooting from the hip in terms of writing copy. You have to speak their language. You have to talk about what they stand to gain, their emotions, their payoff, the alleviation of their problem, all that.
That's amazing. That's diamond nuggets out there. I'm gonna watch this interview on replay to get all that, collect all that nuggets that you dropped out. It's so amazing. And if people want to know more about like from your resources, what is the best place they can go to?
Yeah, I think they can go to e5bundle.com. I think the letter E, the numeral 5 bundle, BUNDLE.com. And I think my team has my book up there, the E5 Method book. You could see it on the bookshelf, and a bunch of bonus trainings for like $7 or $8, something like that, on there. That's the best place to start. The book is about 300 and some odd pages, 320 pages, and it really breaks down a lot of what it is that we just talked about, as well as a whole lot more. There's an audio version of the book as well. That's where they should go.
Awesome. I'm gonna be dropping the links in the show notes. Somebody has already dropped it. Thank you so much, RJ, for doing that. Any last piece of advice, Todd? I know your time is so precious. Any last message for our buddy entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah, I would say this, and I like to finish with this, that, look, I believe that, I'm not talented, right? I don't have any crazy skills. I'm certainly not a genius. I told you my early stories in school. Didn't read a full book cover to cover until I was like 22 years old, literally. I didn't start with any connections. I launched my business with 850 bucks and that's it, and never invested or had to invest another dime of my own money over the last 20 plus years. And so I would tell you that no matter what challenge you think you have in front of you, no matter what obstacle you think you have in front of you, or what you think is stopping you, you can break through it if you're just willing to continue to put one foot in front of the other. In other words, like, look, while there are a lot of people out there that talk about fast money, easy money, push button riches, right? I think that that's all garbage and nonsense, but you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve with your business if you're willing to be tenacious, if you're willing to get up every day and continue to work on it and take one step after another step after another step. I promise you, if you don't quit, you will get there. It's not a sprint. It's not about how fast you got there compared to somebody else. It's just about you knowing that you don't need talent, you don't need wicked intellect, you don't need connections, and you don't need a lot of money. You just have to have the will to keep going every day, period.
That's a message right out there for our buddy entrepreneurs. And Todd, that's so humble and kind of you. You are genius. You are most talented person for us. It is. You have
Oh
proved it.
gosh, I'm not. I'm not. You got to remember, all it is, and then we can end with this. People tell me all the time, "Oh, you're a marketing genius. You're this," and I'm not. The only right. It's just time and study. It's time, study, and experience. And so, right, there was a time when I knew nothing. Everybody, listen to me. For everybody, listen to me. The top 1% of entrepreneurs, the top 1% of marketers, the top 1% in any arena, whether it's business, whether it was athletics, at one point was the bottom 1%. At one point was just starting. At one point knew nothing. This is all a learnable skill, right? And so you have to recognize that everybody that you see that's here, at one point they were here,
Yeah.
right? But what they did was they continued to put one step in front of another. They continued to get up every day and do what they had to do to get there. And you'll go through trials and you'll have setbacks and you'll have failures. Everybody does, myself included. But if you keep putting one foot in front of another, I promise you, you'll get there.
Absolutely. That's a powerful message out there. Thank you again, once again, Todd, for this. You have been so gracious with your time and for serving our community. People who are watching us, stay tuned. We will come up with another episode very soon. Till then, take care. Bye, everyone.